I mean, when I used to go to conventions and things, and you very often get fans coming up to you and saying, I want to be a Doctor Who writer. How do I get to be a Doctor Who writer? And I always used to say there is no such thing as a Doctor Who writer. There are writers who, amongst other things, occasionally do a Doctor Who. And that is genuinely true, I think. People like Stephen Moffat and Paul Cornell. Although Stephen Moffat, wrote Coupling, which is an absolutely brilliant comedy series, and he's done a couple of exceptionally good Who's. Paul Cornell has written, for a lot of other series and for soap operas and all kind of things. He's a working professional scriptwriter, and the main thing is persistence, really, to keep trying, not to give up. I mean, it's hard to get started. It's hard for anybody, and you either stick to it or you give up. And the ones who stick to it, if they have the talent. I mean, I used to have a sort of handy formula that you need three things: talent, luck, and persistence. And they don't all have to be in equal measure, as it were, I mean, if you're enormously talented, you'll probably make it even though you're unlucky. If you're not very talented, but you're terrifically persistent, you'll probably make it as well. But those three things are important: talent, luck, and persistence. And persistence is probably the most important.
Yes, as it probably is in all writing. Someone can be very good and not get spotted straight away. The important thing is not to stop. How did you yourself get onto television?
Well, having said all that, I'm not good on persistence, but I like to think I score reasonably high on talent, and I certainly score very high on luck. And I first got into television because I rented the room in the house of a man called Malcolm Hulk, who was a professional scriptwriter. He bought the house as a kind of investment, and let the rooms out. And I got to know him, and he helped me to get started in the business. So that was a huge stroke of luck.
Yes.
But on the other hand, you see, if I hadn't been able to do the work, and to take advantage of the opportunities, it wouldn't have done me any good.
You sound like someone who came from a journalistic background, because as a journalist we had to write to deadlines. It sounds very similar. I suppose
certainly I started in radio, as most people do, and then from that in television. But I mean, in television, and particularly in soap opera, which I worked in for a while, and in series television, deadlines are enormously important, even more so than in print, you see, because I mean, what can happen if you miss a deadline as a journalist, say, right, the story doesn't get in, they'll put something else in, and maybe you'll get fired, but I mean, nothing awful will happen. In television, on a certain date, the director joins the production, bringing with him an enormous entourage of highly paid people, and if the scripts aren't there, they can't do anything. They haven't got enough time to make the show properly anyway, and if you're late with the scripts, that short time is cut down even shorter. So deadlines in television are really, really important, and that's the kind of discipline I grew up with.
Yes, so that's what's going to get you the job, and that's what's going to keep you in the job. Did you always want to be a writer, and was your first aim to get into writing or to get into broadcasting?
Yeah, well, it's the only thing I can do, you see. I mean, I was an only child, so I read a great deal, which is, in a sense, a help. I mean, if you're an only child, you get